It is 7:32 on April 18th, 2024, and the meeting of the Village Council Martin's Edition is now in session. First, weather report.
Yes. And good evening, council, and good evening, Marty. A very pleasant good evening. Temperatures today in the mid to the upper 70s. After some morning clouds, it turned into a beautiful day. Not so nice tomorrow. Not a whole lot of rain, maybe some showers in the afternoon, a lot of clouds around. But the weekend's looking nice. Could be some showers early in the morning on Saturday, but the rest of the weekend's quite pleasant. But it's going to get a lot cooler.
I will.
And I don't see any warm weather at all now until May.
Okay, but no frost. Frost days are over.
I think that we're pretty safe
Good.
with on that.
Okay.
And then down the road, looks like a lot of warm weather coming in here for May and taking us right into the first part of the summer.
Good, okay. So I have one question for you. How many cities or regions do you do weather reports for?
26.
26.
Go on, if you say my name and say
Yeah.
weather on your phone, you'll
Okay.
the whole story. It's a very interesting story. What I think is even more interesting is the gentleman who I replaced in Ohio, who was a beloved television personality in Ohio, Pat Barry.
Uh-huh.
When his name comes up and it talks about his death because he died of COVID in 2020,
Oh,
click on and read about Pat Barry.
okay.
And then Willard Scott's also in that article too, and he's deceased.
Great.
And this is all in that cat article we did about a year ago.
That's right. That's right.
Good.
Not
Great.
cat, but
Good. Okay, thank you, Keith.
Well,
Okay, we have residents, at least one. Any others?
not yet.
Any resident comments?
Yes, hello, and thank you for asking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't get my video working, but I got my sound working tonight. Computer technology. First off, I'm not sure how many council members are there tonight. I can only see the three of you.
We have 4.
Four. Okay, just one's not on screen. Okay, I have actually two questions. One is about following up on the, oh, hello, Susan. I saw you on that when the camera swiveled.
Wasn't sure I was the invisible person.
Glad you're there. Following up on the engineer to look at making that parking lot exit behind the shops more secure and pedestrian friendly. Michael, is that going to be in your manager's report later on?
I can talk about that, sure.
Talk about that.
I can talk about
Okay.
it now.
Talk about it now.
Yeah, I'm planning to start with calling the Joe Kutro, who's on our
I know Joe.
payroll, so to speak,
Mhm.
and start there and see what he has, what his thoughts are, but then potentially hiring a separate engineer to look at that. Because I think the entire parking lot, not that we control the entire parking lot, but what we can and can't do, you know.
Yeah,
on
we
both
have the
sides.
right of way at both sides of it, just not the actual interior of the lot.
Correct.
Right, and the entrance and exits.
So I haven't been able to sit down with Joe yet, but that's on my to-do list.
Okay, well, again, I had another neighbor tell me there was a scary episode. I don't know the details of her kid on a skateboard coming out of that parking lot or through the parking lot and out to go down to the park. And I don't know the details, but just very scary. She was upset. And what's the progress on that? And can we move on that soon rather than later? So
Yeah.
I told her
I
to
think
ask.
Marty-
And thank you for
Marty,
doing that.
the other issue that I've experienced now, and this is not pedestrian related, is it's coming from Brookville turning onto Turner, or coming from Turner towards Brookville, people just flying out of the parking lot and you know, just near misses there. So I think that's another challenge. There is a stop sign, if I recall correctly, and once you're on Turner, you have the right of way, presumably. But that's not how some of these folks feel, whether it's a car or one of the many contractors.
Yeah, it is a scary corner.
Okay.
It would be.
And again, if the council could just make that a high priority, I think a lot of us would be grateful for all of
Yeah.
those reasons.
Do you any other
Yes,
questions,
yes.
issues?
Second question was about parking enforcement.
Right.
And again, from a neighbor, I was out trying to weed my front yard, which is organic and so has a wonderful crop of weeds this spring. Um, and the question was, is it possible? I know this has been discussed repeatedly and it's kind of a frustrating issue, but is it possible to piggyback on a parking enforcement officer part-time from some of the other towns that have parking enforcement? Like one morning a week. Again, the trucks being parked around the shops is an issue, and big yard work trucks blocking narrow streets is an issue. And I wanted to take a moment here to thank Michael for putting in a little note in the weekly wrap-ups the last couple of weeks about reminding residents not to have contractors block driveways or fire hydrants. You know, Michael, I think that's a useful note. Thank you for including that. But this is the larger issue about, can we actually hire a parking enforcement officer? And if so, it would need to go in the budget. And that's what I told the neighbor, is that this would have to be a budgeted addition as a contractor, right? So
Yeah,
let me just put
Marty,
that on
I'm
the
glad you
table.
asked that question. I have been looking into that. I've been participating in a local mayor's monthly discussion that Andrew used to participate in.
Oh, I was told not to bother.
Oh, well,
Oh, well.
I sent out a note.
Who told you not to bother?
I sent out a note to the other mayors and asked this very question. Do they have any advice? Do they hire anybody? How do they handle it if they don't have their own police? And I got a kind of some lukewarm suggestions, but nothing really hot. And I then did a Google search of it, thinking there must be folks out there doing this, and couldn't find any. There are people out there selling you software systems on how to handle your ticketing and recording of videos and so on. And I've kind of come up short. Michael, what have you? Michael also has been doing
And by the way, those
Yeah.
mayors ran the gamut from Rockville
Rockville,
to Glen Echo.
right?
So you have everything.
That's
in
right.
between.
That's
So-
right.
It's the whole gamut.
They did not have useful suggestions. So everyone has the same problem. Nobody has a solution. Michael, if you've found anything in this area beyond that?
That's basically what I have as well. Unless the county would start doing the enforcement for us, which there's some thought that maybe there's a way to get them to do drive-bys, once a week or something. I'm not sure how to make that happen, but our police officers don't provide ticketing services. The neighboring municipality that has their own police department does not want to work for us or partner with us in this effort.
Can you remind us if, because ours are off duty, whether they just aren't permitted to, or they
No,
just? would
They
rather
would
not?
have to go to court is one issue.
Right.
And
And
is
that would that
Ron,
be on our clock?
right, and what, but what Ron said, they don't want to spend, it's unpredictable, unscheduled, you could spend
Yeah.
the whole day sitting there.
Yeah.
And there's a larger issue, and that I think Mike said last time he visited the council meeting, Mike, the police officer, that a lot of the county's been encouraging their police officers to not get involved in traffic control, because that is the most likely time a police officer is going to be in a hostile situation with a resident.
So they just want the
actually-
parking enforcement.
And most
Department, yeah.
traffic control has moved towards either, camera ticketing type systems or, call for police officers when the's only an
Yeah.
emergency.
Well, we have a very effective guy in Bethesda who's very good at giving you tickets.
I'm sure.
There's actually a good rent-a-cop service in Friendship too.
Is there? Okay.
I haven't actually.
Okay,
So
well,
I-
these are things to try to
I did
look
talk
into.
to Julian, the manager of Friendship Heights. The reason why he can hire a private company is because they have paid parking. So it's all of the meter cops
Right,
that they have. For just free street parking, that's not really a enforcement thing. So that's a
We
separate.
can, so Marty, we are continuing to look at this. It's not just our issue, our problem, but it comes up across all the municipalities here.
One thing that I'd like to tease out of that, maybe in the follow-up, is the more kind of egregious things, like if you're blocking a fire hydrant, or if you're blocking access to a person's driveway and they have to go
Right.
for an appointment or something, if there's the possibility we can call a private tow company. And I think we would probably have to lay out in our code, like what would create a public safety issue, but just something that if it's really egregious, that we have some authority to.
I think we have the authority right now.
Do we
But
not have
see-
to post
Unclear.
the towing?
I don't know. I don't know. any-
That's a wrong
the
question.
detail. I think
but
we have the
think we would
authority
need
to do
notify
it.
People that
Right.
Yeah.
could be towing.
We,
And
we
I-
have the authority to tow, or the village could call a tow truck,
It's a
Um,
possibility.
We don't
or
know
a
yet.
private citizen
I,
could.
as I read, it's been a while since I read that part of the code, but we can enforce it. I don't know, what kind of, there may be other state requirements to do something else, but I'm not sure.
I'm not
I
saying
just,
this
I
is a
simply don't
daily
know.
Occurrence. I mean, this could be something that happens once a year, but just.
Yeah, right.
It does happen.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the other thing to think about is these are, mostly they are residents or residents like visitors of residents. So
So you want.
politically, y'all,
civil.
I don't know if
Right.
you wanna,
Right.
Don't want
Yeah,
to tow
we've had, I
someone
mean,
away.
we've had calls of vehicles with no tags or expired tags, out-of-state tags.
Mhm.
And so there was kind of, again, the question of jurisdiction and how that.
Yeah,
how
and
that's
the
dealt with.
police officers have had a kind of an interesting response to me when I call about tags and cars that we think are abandoned and stolen. They don't want to, be disclosing information to me about who owns cars, and they don't want to be, running people's criminal records and sharing that information with me. Because I'm not really purview to that. So they will tell me simple things like the person does live on the street and those types of things, but they won't tell me who.
Right, so there are all these privacy issues involved. Good.
But I can follow up with Ron if you all want me to.
Yeah,
The towing option. that's an
Well,
interesting idea.
I think what we need is a more general understanding of what we can do and what capabilities are around.
And what's the revenue sharing if we start towing cars? in the
Yeah.
village?
But
Liability
don't-
if people
yeah.
find it.
I didn't say that.
I didn't
Well,
either.
I
That was,
guess
that was a
my-
joke.
But a good joke.
Okay.
My follow-up question would be, is there some way to provide a summary? And Lord knows, Michael, I don't want to ask you to do one more thing. I know your to-do list is longer than your arm. But maybe there's somebody on the council could take on to sort of summarize what actually is in place now, and what residents can do. Because I agree, it's a safety issue sometimes. And
We
we've had,
currently direct residents to call the non-emergency Montgomery County Police number. We advertise that number pretty frequently.
Mhm.
So if there's a safety issue, you should call the Montgomery County Police Department.
okay. Well, maybe,
There
maybe
is
put,
one other issue, Marty, that many people believe that the parking space in front of their house is theirs.
yeah, and it's
They
not.
mistakenly believe that.
Right.
And they
No,
think
no
they have the
dibs on
right
the
to
street.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's an issue of kind of just education.
Yeah. Anyway, it
Okay.
seems to me that maybe an article in the next newsletter about, parking, parking regs, parking do's and don'ts. I mean, just, I don't even know what the regs say on it. So a summary from one of you about what the current options are. And like this discussion, I mean, plus, whatever our regulations do permit. And I think the emphasis, Michael, on, if it's a safety issue, what to do. We've had our driveway blocked several times in the last 3 weeks.
Hmm.
And, that's not great. And, it's just, and my Jeep could probably go over the lawn, but Bill's Volvo can't. So it's an issue.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, looking into it. Any other, anyone else? Okay,
There's, one other person on the line, David. But no,
Okay.
Julian's right.
Yeah,
Moving on.
I'm here.
oh,
Is this the residents' comment part? of
yes,
it?
if you have a comment or question or observation.
I have a question or concern. I don't know if there's any plan on it. But I notice in a lot of areas, just in general around the country, they've been replacing street light lamps, not traffic signals, but the lighting on the poles with LEDs, which I think are bad. I know they save energy, but the glare is really bad. The light is harmful to animals and insects and humans because it's all in the visible spectrum. There's a lot of blue light to it. And I didn't know if what the plans were for lighting in our village.
Well, David, all the lights but one are LED lights in the village.
They
They were
are.
installed several years ago. And
Okay.
some of the concerns you just mentioned were raised at that time. And we did do a review of the scientific literature, and none of those concerns hold up. There was actually one letter that went into the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, that raised these issues, but it had to do with research where there was extremely powerful lights shining into a rabbit's cage about 2 feet away, and apparently affected their mating behavior, as it would mine as well. There really was not a concern as we went through the medical and scientific literature. So we've had these lights. I don't think they're particularly glaring or intense, but they've been there for several years. And as you're right, our electric bill fell by something like 95% after installing them, and they don't wear out, or
They don't need to be replaced.
They don't have
by
to be
Petco,
replaced.
Which was a big
Yeah.
ordeal.
yeah.
I was gonna say, I have a light right in front of my house that had not been working very well and was constantly out, and it was replaced, and I agree with David. Super bright suddenly. I mean, it is very bright
It
in
is
front
bright.
of our house,
Now,
which
sometimes
for
I-
safety reasons, I appreciate.
But a shield, sometimes
Yeah.
the shield can deal with that.
Maybe that's the
And,
case.
and if you find that, our lighting engineer looked at the shielding carefully.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's inadequate for, depending on where the
Yeah.
light is relative to a window and
Yeah.
so on.
My kid's room faces the front, so
Oh,
he sleeps through it. So,
okay,
I have a
Thank you.
question. Is there any information on these lights that we've installed that,
yeah, I
Make it
could go
sensible.
back into the files and pull out something.
all right,
2018, probably.
Yeah, it turns out that the wattage is very low. You'd think that a big street light would have some very high wattage, but it's like 15 watts.
And also for LEDs, they're not all the same, so you can change even the color and.
That's right.
down,
They
so-
have,
soft and-
they're a rack of multiple, actually small bulbs, so you can change the color temperature on that by varying the color temperature of the individual lights. Okay.
all right.
Anything
thank you.
else? But send me an email to remind me to dig out some of that information. I'll go look for it.
What email should I use for that?
You can, there's one, look on the website for the village, and
I think
all our
it's
emails
First
are
name
there.
dot last name. so
Arthur.Alexander@martinsedditions.org.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Good. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other residents? Okay, moving on. We have the minutes from the last meeting. We've had a chance to review them. And do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? All in favor of approving those minutes? Aye. Thank you. Committee reports. We have a representative from the election committee here. Does that representative have a report?
Marty is muted.
Marty, if you're,
Okay, I got myself
Go ahead.
unmuted here. Yeah, again, thank you for the time to report. It's been a really busy month here. As you see, we have a written report every month, and we put it in this month's meeting packet. But let me just run through quickly the various candidates, dealing with candidates, the voter roll, the ballots, the forum, and election day. So we got it all on one page, trying to be concise here. Things are on track, things are going well, a lot of work, but it's the administrative mechanics that we're in the midst of now. 3 candidates on the ballot, as you know. All 3 of you are present tonight. Thank you for running. And I want to commend Michael and Aaron both for not just posting the info packet on the website. The committee got it together pretty quickly, and the staff posted it very quickly. And I want to thank Aaron and Michael both for doing the printing and mailing it to all the BMA households right on schedule. The voter roll has been a huge project, and we have, as a result of it, very thorough, 634 qualified BMA voters this year. We can, of course, continue to add new people as they move in. There'll be some move-ins and move-outs between now and May 7th. We can add new voters up till May 7th. We have the data spreadsheets that the contractor not only went through and checked all the residents, but also listed in the final right column of the spreadsheets how they were confirmed. Confirmed directly with the voters or the family themselves. Confirmed by an obituary when someone was removed because they died. And quite an interesting process. There were people on the voter roll who had died some years ago. And of course, as you all know, it's not considered good electoral practice to send ballots to dead people. So this was a cleanup that was really needed. And I was really happy to see that we added some new voters who were missed. And it was really, just a tremendous process. And I want to commend Julian Lampier, the contractor, for being very thorough. And there'll be some follow-up analysis on that. And we also probably should do, I know we will do, the committee will do a follow-up notes to people if they weren't included this year. Generally, there was, well, in fact, every time, in every case, if someone was removed, it was for good reason. They died, they had definitely moved away. They told us themselves they were no longer a voter, and that they were now voting in other jurisdictions. So we were very, very cautious and careful, following the regulations about not removing anybody without due process. So anyway, I think it was really a wonderful exercise. It'll have many benefits down the road, having a cleaner base from here on out in terms of a base voter roll. Plus, it has been and will continue to be, I think, a very useful process to update the directory. One of the biggest practical impediments to this process for the contractor and for the election committee was that so many of the voters we have neither an email nor a valid phone number for. And we ended up knocking on people's doors. And if they weren't home, we went back and knocked again. Again, the process was very thorough. The committee was quite happy to vote to approve the qualified voters list, quite confident in the results. And doesn't mean it's perfect. It means it's as good as it could be done and done very thoroughly. But I really want to say to the council that you should please, for Michael's sake, do whatever you can to support him in obtaining valid emails and current phone numbers for all the residents, because that was really a problem. That's what took literally 50% of the time, was because we had no way to contact people other than either knocking on a door and waiting for them to be home, or sending them a formal letter, which of course is time consuming for the staff, because the staff has to, I mean, the committee can write the letter, but the staff has to actually, print it and, stuff the envelopes and mail it. So that's a staff burden, and we really need ways to contact people more directly. So here's Michael, Godspeed on the new directory. And I think that this voter roll verification process really moved us, ahead by leaps and bounds and giving us additional information there.
Marty,
And
I
the
had a
ballots
question there.
are in production. We got the first early ballots mailed out to the residents who requested early ballots. The production process with Electech has been going quite well. And yes, they are able to do the ballot postal tracking that the council approved last month. So thank you very much for approving that. It's a good election practice.
Marty, I think Arthur has.
Yeah, Marty, a quick question. Ron had outlined the state requirements for taking people off the rolls that were really quite lengthy. But if you have evidence that somebody has died, do you still have to go through, send them a letter, wait for a reply, and do all those things?
No.
Oh.
If the county has to do the dual letter thing, that's a county and state regulation.
Okay.
But because the county is not allowed to use obituaries, we as a village can use an obituary or a confirmation from the family member that
Okay.
so-and-so has died. So that's one way in which Martin's Additions has a little more flexibility than the state does. And we were very careful because we do have obits and or family confirmations for everybody who was removed because they died.
Okay, so we don't have to go through through the county procedures that
No.
are. Okay, thank you.
It's not quite as involved as the county. The poor county
Okay.
guy, Boris, is tearing his hair out because he's got so many people on the county voter roll that he knows that they're not alive. He's got an obit, but an obit on the county level is not enough to remove somebody.
You got to send the letters. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other committee members present?
here.
Oh, here we go.
And this is a pretty important event coming up here in just a couple of weeks. The celebration on the sidewalk. I've talked along with Michael to all the merchants. We've gotten their cooperation in participating with us in the event. I guess the biggest thing is probably the Good Humor Man, who I've talked to he and his wife personally. They will be here prior to 5 p.m. and for the duration of the event here on May the 7th.
Good.
And that was,
There's a flyer right there behind you on the green flyer.
that was something that was very popular last year, especially with the kids. And we're ready to roll on. We're excited about this.
Good.
I've got a special order in. I've had it in for some time now to make sure the weather is good on that day.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
The meeting soon after that, the event is over with to talk about our 4th of July celebration, which is
Good.
going to be June the 30th, Sunday, June the 30th.
Okay,
Thank you.
looking forward to the 4th. Good, thank you. Any other committees available? The Water Committee is going to be having a meeting next week. They are moving forward with a survey questionnaire for the community. So stand by and be ready for that. Okay, no other committees?
Should I add?
Yeah,
maybe
go ahead.
to that piece, we had a nice my time frame is off, with meetings, but the meeting with Mark Schaefer and Jean, there's some questions around the budgeting. They had, requested, could there be some funding for the survey and then perhaps afterwards some implementation, and Michael was very kind to spare his time, and I think we sorted through what is not an intuitive, none of this is intuitive. It's just where pots of money may come from. We talked about ARPA, we talked about the reserves, we talked about a lot of things, but bottom line is and then there's the grant that they've submitted. So my understanding at this point is there's a kind of a little bit of a wait until they know that they get the grant or not. And then if not, then we will backtrack in terms of what pools of funds we might go in with.
Right. Well, and Mark has sent in some questions to the state about if we start work before and we actually get a grant, what kind of procedures can we have to make a smooth transition from our funding to their funding? Okay, Jeff, you have some ideas about introducing legislation.
Well, let me phrase that, and I'm gonna refer to, in this case, my left hand, Michael, because I know we had talked a little bit about this from an administrative standpoint. So I don't know if it's legislation versus just a guideline that could be referred to, because we don't want this to be something that interferes with the chair or operations in a way that is seen as obstructive. It's more of the idea of, could we just have something that's in writing that has some basic elements of how does one go about, there's a problem, when do we draft an ordinance, and then just some basic, again, recommendations of scheduling votes, so on and so forth. So I don't want to make this too elaborate. I didn't expect to spend too much time on this, but there's been stuff in the minutes that we shared, so if folks are traveling, how do we, just arrange a schedule? And then the other piece is just what is expected, if at all, around the reasonable notification. Is it a couple of business days? That's sort, unless it's like an emergency. And then, so I just want to put it out there. This is not intended to be some onerous process that, let's just say, hampers the chair or the office, but just put something on paper that could be referred to. And it's not something that would, again, I don't think we're looking at this as legislation. It's more of a, I don't know what you call it.
Procedure, standard operating procedure.
I use the term council resolution, which
Right.
doesn't have to be binding necessarily, but something that everyone agrees to.
Just a
This is how the
guideline,
process
yeah.
works. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And again, we're
But-
not voting, I mean.
Right, yeah,
Michael will
before,
come up with something and share it, and then we'll have time to iterate on it.
yeah, that's how it should be done. Obviously, we need to see what
Okay.
we're discussing
Yeah,
before we can
yeah.
discuss it.
And
so.
maybe the final thought on this, the timeline, I'll defer to Michael. I mean, obviously, we've got elections coming up and everything else, so it could be something that is at the beginning of the next council. It really depends on Michael's timeline. I didn't see this as a burning issue, because I don't think we have anything at the moment in front of us, but, perhaps in June is usually a quiet time, but.
Do you have idea of, like in your mind of a draft of what this might look like?
Well, what I did was, and again, I know it was lost perhaps in so much other stuff, but in the minutes, there was kind of like a 5 or 6 step sort of process. And then there were a couple pieces that just highlighted a couple areas that we wanted.
This is from a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
again, let me give an example. And again, this is not meant to be controversial, but like, for example, during the ordinance process, if there are questions that all council members have, which usually we find a way, every council member has a way of getting a question addressed, whether it's at a council meeting or whatever it might be. But it's just the idea that it's there, so that, for example, maybe all questions could go and Michael or the chair could gather them, just so that anyone who has a question on the council as an elected official about an ordinance or something, it'll just be collated. And that way it could even save some time at a meeting, so that you don't have to have Ron sit there for 3 hours until it comes up or something. But that stuff like that procedurally.
Okay.
The other piece is like around notification, right? And again, this is not meant as a controversial thing, but earlier in the year, we had something where we did a notification that was the day before an open meeting. And then other times we try and do it a few days before. And I would just say, I think it's reasonable for us to say what is reasonable. Maybe we could do it 2 or 3 days, and just so that we have sort of an understanding. And then travel, right? There are times Andrew has been traveling, I've been traveling, Susan, we all travel, right? And if there's a vote to be taken, just how do we schedule it? So that everyone could be available to vote if they want to vote. I think things like that. Did I
Okay,
miss anything?
before next meeting, please send a copy of whatever you're envisioning to all council members, just as a courtesy,
Yeah.
please.
Well,
So
this is
let's
in the
take a
minutes.
look.
can-
I know it's in the minutes, but that looked very rough. Was that actually what you're thinking of?
Well, the idea is Michael, I think,
Distill it,
has
maybe,
enough information, and I think he was gonna put together like a 1-pager.
If you all direct me
Nice.
to, I don't want to be drafting the
Yeah,
resolution
no.
for you, but if you all direct me to, I mean, a bunch of this is already actually written out in different, it's in the
parts
code
of the
and stuff,
code,
so.
exactly.
I can work with Ron to come up with like a 1-page, very simple, if you all wish,
Yeah, give it a try. We'll take a look.
and I can send it around and then we can.
Yeah, have something to discuss.
The presumption, this isn't a large, what we call, level of effort. This is a relatively, it won't
Okay.
be thousands of dollars.
Good.
Sure.
Something to review. Okay, thank you, Jeff. The next item, if I'm going down here, next year is the 40th anniversary of the incorporation of the Village of Martin's Additions. And we want to celebrate, since we're party people. Katie Polipchik Howard has volunteered. She's not here tonight.
But she volunteered.
She volunteered.
You're not volunteering.
I am not volunteering her. I would have had she not, but she stepped forward and volunteered to help work with next year's Community Engagement Committee. And we will be selecting members of next year's committee when the new year comes up in July, with the idea that this is going to be a major item on next year's agenda. 40th year. We had our 30th anniversary 10 years ago. So we're all ready to party for the 40th. Anyone have any ideas, suggestions? The 100th anniversary, we rented out the Women's Club up on Connecticut Avenue and spent an entire afternoon. There were videos and
A great speech on trees.
yes,
canopies.
one of our members gave a speech on trees. That was the highlight of the meeting.
It was actually very interesting.
And Michael is about to, if we can figure out how to do it, take the DVD that was made of that and put it up on the website, so it'll be available.
And if anyone wants a copy of the DVD.
We do have
we
extra
extra
copies.
copies that we have no idea what to do with, so.
We'd like to
please.
clear out.
People
that
don't
shelf.
know about DVDs anymore.
I have no way to play it, so Arthur is kind enough to record it. for
I
me.
have a converter that makes it into an MP3 or something.
Oh, I did it on my computer. I did MP3, MP4. So Michael has several versions.
It'll
to
be on
try
the
to
YouTube
use.
channel if you want to watch it at some point.
Yeah. Anyone have any ideas, anything? We just announce that, or if anyone has any further discussion on it.
What's the date again?
We
The
can, the
official
date,
I mean, what's the official?
the
date?
official date, I don't know.
March 19th of 1985.
March 19th.
I
Thank
think,
you.
I think. I mean,
Yeah.
don't quote me.
Okay. Good,
So we're a year away.
right. So. Okay, get ready.
Oh, I think the only piece of that, and maybe that'll come out when Katie is here and talking to,
Yeah.
Keith, was this something that was standalone or should it be part of like the community engagement and it's just?
Well, we've thought about that.
Right.
Michael doesn't need to deal with any more committees right now. We're all,
I know that's said out of love, by the way.
we're all committed up. So it was thought, unless anybody has a better idea, we have a committee already
Yeah, perfect.
up and ready to go. And just when people are volunteering
So subcommittee.
next year,
Create
a subcommittee on
On the anniversary.
right.
I think to answer that question, if
Take care of it, Arthur,
Good,
unless they don't vote for me next year to be on.
okay,
I think Katie kind of taking on the lead there will be really helpful too, to
Yeah.
kind of coordinate everybody.
right, good. Yeah, that's why I thought she would
Keith
be good.
Keith might have a little bit of institutional knowledge as it
For sure.
relates to VMA.
Were you on the Centennial committee at all?
No.
No. You were,
I was,
Yeah.
Naomi was.
right.
um,
Okay, one other idea that's been percolating for years is for the village to host and sponsor some kind of general first aid, CPR, Heimlich training for our residents. We've been talking about, remember the safety group during the pandemic, this kind of came up. And we thought this was something that could be useful. And I just spoke to somebody recently who, after having taken one of these courses, was called upon to do a Heimlich
Yeah.
maneuver and actually save somebody. And she says, having had the training beforehand, just
Yeah.
gave her the technical knowledge and the confidence to do it. So, Michael, have you started to look into this?
I have contacted several companies that provide these trainings, including the Red Cross.
And the Red Cross too.
I haven't gotten a price tag from the Red Cross yet, but they will come and like train your employees kind of thing. And I did get an estimate from another company, the Heart Saver Institute.
Yeah, you said, I looked them, I couldn't figure out who they are. Or, I mean, they have a wide variety of training capabilities.
Would be
Yeah.
worth maybe making this an annual event.
That's another thing, that's a really good
Do we have one
idea.
in the Office, do we have it?
We could do it right here,
We do it right here.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, and they can
Like-
do as many people as you can get. You do need to figure out exactly who's going to come, so it would have to be some sort of sign up thing.
right,
And they charge you based on how many people are coming, but
Right.
for 10 people, it's $740.
oh,
yeah, that's about what the Red Cross.
and they charge about the same,
Online, yeah, I think it's 79 if you do an online course.
oh, I would want to do it here where
You
you
would wanna do
actually
it in
get to
person.
do
I know,
work
it
with the
would
dummies and
Seem
all
to
that,
be much more effective.
yeah,
So we could, create a little sign up page and see how many people sign up and
Okay.
then, pick a vendor.
Yeah, and maybe if the number is bigger, the price comes down per person.
Yeah, and I think that the first 10 is a set rate, and then every person, they said it was $45. The firm I talked to, so it's $45 for an additional person.
Oh, okay.
that's good. Right, 'cause I had a friend who was at the gym, collapsed after he got off the machine, and somebody who had just had the training with the
Paddles.
paddle
Yeah, yeah.
immediately came over, knew exactly what to do, put the paddles on him, and he
Where was that?
revived him. One of the gyms in Bethesda, I don't remember which one,
Lifetime Fitness.
possibly, I don't know.
Obviously Sport and Health.
I don't remember
Is that your
exactly.
gym? Is that where you go?
No, I don't, no, I don't go there. The one I went to shut down during the pandemic and they reopened at a price 10 times higher. They priced me out.
I suggest that the fire department will do this free.
Oh, that's another one
If they
to
will, we can definitely follow up with them once we have.
check
a
them up too.
plan in place.
Okay, so we are directing our manager to follow up on this.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry.
And the annual one is even a better idea, good
Yeah.
idea too.
Because I
Have it
mean,
on
I've done
Arbor
it.
Day.
We did it before our firstborn came
Uh-huh.
around. That's now almost 14 years ago.
You
Haven't
do
really
for
done it
Just a
refresher.
since.
refresher.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
Great time.
You might
You
have
got
to
those-
use it on the neighbors.
that,
And it could be-
anybody,
And it could be a really nice community building thing.
That's
for,
right.
you know,
It's a good idea.
10 to 15 people or something.
good, okay, I like the idea.
My
Uh,
only quick thought.
yeah, go ahead.
It'll be relatively quick. I shared this by, I believe, email to all the council members was simply, I had just completed this at the Red Cross Center. That's really.
Yeah, you mentioned that down the,
So the only thing I would, again, look into to make sure, which I'm sure you have already, is that whatever training they're doing, it is you get your Red Cross certification. The reason why I say that is there is like a very specific component about demonstrations and using the mannequins and the paddles, and I just would want to make sure, because when you say they'll take as many people, I mean, the biggest thing about the Red Cross Center is they actually have like an entire training room, like twice as big as this, that accommodates the mannequins and that space. So I just put that out there.
Okay.
'Cause- Yeah, because if you don't get the certification, I
It
mean,
do-
it's
it does
nice to
come-
have, but you really want the card.
Everything I was looking at comes with the
Perfect.
certification.
good, okay. So how, when you took that course, how long was it? Was it more multiple sessions, one session or
Yeah,
what?
there was an online component, but then there was the in-person part, and I did the infant, the child, the adult, first aid, and that includes the, what is it, the paddle.
Defibrillators.
Yeah, and it wasn't terribly, it was maybe like a whole morning, because the
Okay.
rest of the part was online, so it was
Online.
maybe 4 hours at most. It
Oh.
really wasn't that much
Okay.
after, yeah. So.
Yeah, they had some that were hybrid and some that were all in person. There's different options. but,
Okay, good,
Yeah, it does come with a 2-year certification
good,
and the
okay.
CPR safety guide.
Okay, let's look into it. Good, thank you. Treasurer's report.
Aha.
Jeff, well, I just want to say something.
Yeah.
That was Michael's idea, which is a very, very excellent idea. And I'm sure he knows, we talked about this before, that's where that all started, getting the public involved in CPR decades ago in Seattle.
Hmm.
And they started, they did it in all the schools there and everything.
Mhm.
Great idea.
Yep.
Sorry, Jeff.
Okay, Jeff,
Well, the top lines are, we are in substantial, significant, wonderful financial positions. And if you look at this chart, it's all what we call in the black by a lot. And, yeah, the punchlines is that we are over $500,000 greater than expected in terms of income just at this point. We already know, we talked about this relatively ad nauseum, but this is the ARPA, but also our interests. And we also know that next year we expect to have a little bit of a windfall, but being very, careful, conservative, that these are artificial sweeteners, and with our capital projects underway, it's not like we can go off and just start spending, because we
Right.
know that if you actually look at the marginal expenses versus income minus those sweeteners, we are almost at a gimbal lock. And if things change in terms of interest rates and then ARPA goes away, we could not only be very close to that, but we could actually.
and if we have a recession,
Exactly.
we're not there yet.
So- Oh, I was just
Okay, I was gonna say, next month, we are going to have to do any budget amendments. So, watch out for the major line items where we may be overspending.
Would that be next month or June? The one we do in June?
We could do it
It should just be by the end of the
by
year.
the end of the year, but next month we will be pretty close,
Right,
so.
that's true.
So, but next month we do have to adopt it, right, in May?
We adopt the new budget, but we also have to, we will have to amend the
Yeah,
current
This year's
budget.
one.
So a couple, then just a couple, finish the report and then just a couple, short bullets, points. So, again, kudos to Michael, accountant. Here we have is a detailed line item of the ARPA funds, how they've been spent. And you can see just from looking at this is that so far, Michael had already programmed this and talked about it, is that the line items are from, our normal operations, which we can do for ARPA, but then you're starting to see some other things around the capital projects, which are relatively low. So that's why, we have these pools of funds, and if it turns out with the stormwater management that, we need to fund through ARPA, we have it, but it's really more about a timing. And because we have to obligate this by the end of the year, we really have to, not wait around. We've got to get it out. So
Right.
I think we're in very good shape.
We have to burden it, the accountant said. Yeah, it's usually accountant's word,
But burden.
burden it. Okay,
Just quickly, I know that the other, a couple things I wanted to just mention. In terms of the budget, and this is something I could also bring up, but I realized that for the part of the budget that has the salaries of our staff, we talked about the rate of inflation, right? I think it was like a 5%, but we didn't actually budget in like a merit base that might be like it could be like a 2 to 5%. And it's, again, usually this is an HR discussion, but in terms of the budget, I thought it might be nice to at least have it there. So it's there. And
Yeah.
we don't, and then we make an HR discussion.
Right.
about that.
Yeah.
So that's something I can perhaps calculate, and we could just talk if we want to put that into the
Right.
budget. When we
Good.
adopt it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. We did anticipate, we budgeted 5% over what our current.
Right. and at the time, I said, no promises are implied in this.
Oh, right.
Right.
Merit based.
Right.
It's a merit to happen here.
Cool. The other thing I did want to mention that there was a few residents who reached out and saying how much they love the Chevy Chase at Home program, and they were really hoping, I don't know if they saw the draft, but they were really hoping that it would be maintained and wouldn't be cut. And I assured them that not only will they maintain, but it looks like, at least at the moment, it may be expanded, but I do want to mention that. I also had some residents send me copies of old treasurer reports that really, I think that was when we had our accountant that was full-time, and so they were more extensive than what we've been doing. Essentially what it was a posting of our P&L, the full P&L, and a few other pieces. So I haven't seen an avalanche of requests to do that, and that would be quite a bit, but we could always.
No, I
When the
haven't.
VMA was a corporation.
Well, that was,
PNL.
no,
I'm putting it out there. Yeah.
that was when VMA was PS 19.
Yeah.
No, I've never seen that when, since I've been on the council, it was just like a 2-sentence summary.
Yeah.
Uh,
So with all that said,
Good.
I will now turn over.
Okay, thank you. We are now going to the manager's report, but before we go to the manager's report, I want to say for the record that our manager jumped into the swollen river, the Shenandoah, and helped haul out a woman and her dog while camping last weekend.
Oh, wow.
Her dog had jumped in, she jumped in after it, but the river was flood swollen,
Wow.
and was being pulled away. So Michael ran down the bank, get ahead of her. And then that was very clever, I have to say. And hanging on to a tree branch, reached in and grabbed her. Then presumably she grabbed the dog.
Yeah, she had the dog in one arm and was kind of being pulled down and pulled out with the dog, and I kind of pulled them both ashore, so.
So, yeah, that tells you when you're out camping, what to
Is
expect.
that part of the merit based? Does that apply?
That's right. I think
I just said, let's double it.
Yeah.
there,
Well, you're lucky that she was coming so close to shore that you
Yeah.
were able to,
yeah,
I mean, wow.
You really saved 2 lives.
Yes, you did.
Right.
That's no joke.
It was a pretty intense moment, but I'm glad I was there.
right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even think there's a Boy Scout badge for that.
I think it's justification for our first aid class though, okay?
That's right, yeah.
Um,
And what to do. Okay, manager's report.
Okay, I just have a couple points tonight. Let's keep this meeting really short. To start with, speaking about ARPA, Jeff, the ARPA first reporting deadline is April 30th. So that is my main focus over the next week. I'm on a webinar with the Treasury Department next week, and there's all sorts of state institutions and federal institutions that are trying to help us make sure we all get our reporting in. I don't know what they would actually do if we missed a reporting deadline.
You're gonna go to jail.
Let's not risk it. And that's correct. We've spent about a third of the money that we've gotten from the ARPA money. We got almost $1 million. We've spent over 300,000 so far. And we do have to burden that by the end of the year. I imagine another third will go towards just for our regular spending, but then I do want to spend a significant chunk of that money on the Brookville sidewalk, which I'll talk about in a minute. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the Maryland Municipal League president, and Arthur isn't able to attend, but Vice Chair Katie, who's not here tonight, will be able to attend with me. So
He made a commitment when elected as president of the Maryland Municipal League to visit every municipality in the state. So tomorrow's our turn.
Wow,
Roll
that's
out
a
the
big
red
commitment.
carpet.
Yeah.
Do we have a red carpet?
And he is mayor of this town is about this big down on the Eastern Shore. Where when you look at their website, the farms come right up to Main Street. There's only one street, but the farms come right up to it.
Yeah.
There's 600 people, and that's his shtick. So
It should be a good meeting, like.
what time meet
Well,
9?
that's a private meeting. It's not
Okay.
open to the public, so.
But it's at
Yes.
9, I
Yeah,
believe.
Well, because we're on at noon.
That's correct. Keith and I have agreed to try to pick up trash again tomorrow at noon, so.
Oh,
anyone wants to
okay.
join us, that
Do you
way.
have one of those handle things?
We got gloves. We gotta-
Okay.
you gotta
Just for
bend-
those
you
that
gotta
have lower
bend
back
over.
issues?
Where are you gonna be?
Looks like that
That's
road you out.
Go to Home Depot.
Just around?
Yeah, around the parking lot and down both the Taylor and Turner, trash has kind of been migrating and blowing, and there's a lot of, contractors pulling through here every day, eating
Oh.
lunches in the trucks and stuff.
Yeah.
So we've just kind of
Always.
started trying to clean up every once in a while. So thanks to Keith for
Thank you.
keeping on me to make sure I get out there every Friday.
Thank you. Okay.
So, yeah, that's also on the
Okay.
agenda tomorrow. My third point here is the final reminder that the council meeting next month is moved up, so we only have like 2 weeks before we meet again on May 9th, and that's to accommodate adopting the budget. And we do have to pass a budget amendment for this year, but that could happen in June.
It
but
could
we're-
happen in
but-
June.
But
Or
if we're
next-
ready to, we could do it in May as well,
Right.
so whatever works best for you
Okay.
all. Under maintenance, Rolling Acres has agreed to return to the village to do one final spring cleaning. That is going to be on May 7th, Election Day. So we'll send out a notice about that so people know to move their cars into their driveway and blow anything that you don't want out to the street. But again, encouraging people to leave the leaves on the lawn. It's actually good for the soil and good for the insects. A question has arisen about the trash collection. We've gotten several comments from residents about, do we actually need 2 collections a week? The neighboring municipalities, the county doesn't provide that service. So this is kind of an additional service. And there was a kind of a concern about the amount of emissions that
Carbon footprint.
Right, carbon footprint.
trucks
And traffic.
cause, and and
And all that.
Right.
the nuisance and the smell and the hassle and the cost of having the second trash collection every week. So maybe when that contract comes up, which I believe is next year, we can have a more in-depth discussion.
Yeah, and I think in the
Part of
next
Survey.
And the next survey, for this, we will explicitly raise
Like any
these
two
countervailing questions.
Having 2 pickups per week actually limited our vendor options, our contractor options last time around, because a lot of.
Also
the
coming
contractors
around to the
just said they
side,
won't Do it, yeah.
yeah, and
that
coming
definitely
around
is
to
part
the
of it,
side
but-
to pick it up.
Well, and there is how many pounds of trash are produced by every household. And the fact that we're composting at such a high rate in the community now, would imagine that's actually decreasing the amount of.
I
trash
don't know,
that's coming out.
do they measure, do they weigh, you know?
Well, they do like an average, estimate. But no, they're not weighing your individual trash.
No,
can.
but I mean, do they weigh how much in total they
But
collect?
because if you do like yard collection and recycling, that
Right.
actually should reduce the cost of your trash.
Right.
So that it's I have
It's
a,
4 a week, right, with the yard on
Yeah.
Mondays.
that's
So it's
correct.
four of these trucks that
Right.
come through the
Four
neighborhood.
Right.
trucks drive down every single street,
Right.
every single week. That's right.
Yeah. No.
So that's something to consider. And also, we have an additional service where we do for the trash twice a week, we collect on the side of the house or the back of the house, where other communities make people drag it out to the curb. So there's another potential thing where we could, that's an additional service and we can evaluate whether that's worth it or not.
More
Yeah.
idling, because they're running up and down.
That's
Take
right.
Longer, blocks traffic longer, costs
Right.
more.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but.
So, yeah, so I think it's something to put in the survey, be very explicit about what it is we're considering.
Yes, and if you have 4 cats, you do tend to have.
And kitty litter.
Can't
I
compost
do-
that, right?
This would be part of the survey. Just one comment on that as a thought is seasonality, because there are creatures, as you know, that so during the months where it's warmer, it tends to also just be a public, safety issue in terms of having things collected more frequently, but during the winter, perhaps not as big of a deal. I mean, there are lots of reports of rodents and things, and
Yeah.
you want to just be a little careful
Getting
during
in
the
trash, yeah.
the warmer months.
There's another question about the recycling too. I think the village paid for all the trash, the recycling bins at some point at once, and they put them together on La Ferme's parking lot. Famous story. And since then, what we've been doing is if they break, we just replace them with one-offs. The one-offs don't match, so there has been at least one complaint that the
They call them-
recycling bins don't match anymore
The color, oh,
Resident,
this is,
by a resident.
yeah,
that's a very
Which is-
fashionable.
this is the color.
But maybe at some point we could actually replace all of the recycling bins again.
well, but there's no reason to.
Yeah.
That's perfectly good.
It would be a nice bling for the 40th anniversary. We could get it some special.
And yeah, a nice logo, design something new.
I'll go with the beer mug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Continuing.
moving on. Under special projects, I did mention I would talk about Brookville
Brookville.
sidewalk for a little bit. This is this has turned into my pet project, where I'm gonna rest my career on getting this sidewalk done. We have sent letters to 6 properties that will be impacted by the 5-foot wide ADA compliant sidewalk. Ron, Doug, and Arthur all saw that letter before it went to them. There are 16 properties that this sidewalk is directly in front of. 6 of those 16 will be impacted by a couple inches or something, where their front property line is very narrow. The right of way is very narrow down that way. So
Some of this will just be during construction, where they have to get a few more inches to work with, but others are permanent.
yeah, and so we're setting up meetings with those individuals, those property owners on site and walking them through what the plan is, and then trying to secure easements, both temporary easements for during construction and permanent easements for saying that we'll maintain the sidewalk even though it's 6 inches onto their property. So that's in
And we,
progress.
have we heard any feedback from them at all yet?
We have scheduled the first meeting next week.
Good.
Is this separate from residents who have expressed concerns about water?
Well, they overlap. Yeah.
That
there's an overlap.
resident is also, it does impact his property as well, so.
But I think there are solutions to that.
Okay, and I
Yeah.
know that you're responsive, and I know that particular resident is
Yeah,
expressed concerns, so I just want to make sure.
We're gonna try to set up a meeting with
being addressed.
him and with the others. And then once we get that process done, we'll have to hire another surveyor to come in and draw up the specific language for that Ron needs for the easements, which is the meets and bounds, which is saying a description of the property. It's a narrative as well as the map. So it's quite a lengthy process. I'm learning lots. And if anyone wants to see the plans or walk through it with me, feel free to set that up with me. I'm happy to walk, especially the council members, but residents as well. I'm happy to walk you through the conceptual plans that we have. So,
Couple quick questions. They may not be quick responses, so this is more rhetorical than anything on most of it is. One, do we anticipate some sort of a forum once we have all our ducks in a row that would just be like, come listen and hear about
yes.
how, okay.
And I've already talked to the engineer, who's Clark Azar, about that. The first step is to have these conversations with meetings, get verbal agreements, then the easements, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the 16 properties, and then we'll open it up to everybody. So it's a multi-step process.
And then the other thing is, do we have a vision of the timing of this? Do we, if it's like, this could be in. a
We
year,
started 2
years,
years ago.
or
Yeah.
the
I think when I was still chair,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it'll be
had
this
great
fall.
hope in the fall of
Right.
my,
Yeah.
yeah.
The goal at this point is to get it burdened by the end of the year, which means we just need to have an estimate of how much it's gonna cost and post it and get it a contractor who's going to eventually do it. We can do that simultaneously while we're still applying for permits, because we will need state permits as well as county permits for different parts of this. So we're gonna overlap the processes, the phases. So the permitting phase and the selecting the contractor phase will overlap. So by the end of the year, we'll have a contractor selected and we can sign a contract saying we're gonna spend $250,000 on the sidewalk.
No, I don't know if this is something you can even answer because of the nature of a bidding process, but do we have an appreciation of what this cost may be, or?
I don't, you can,
We're figuring.
you can get to the number because both the state and county comes up with like a per square foot of this type of concrete, how much the average prices are for
Curbing.
materials and stuff.
Yeah. Is it like I'm just a ballpark, is it like $500,000? or-
Probably a little less.
Less, yeah. We'll see. We're not quite there yet. But-
Yeah.
That was
Right.
just- Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
No, I appreciate the questions and the council's attention to this matter because, yeah, again, this is a very important.
Oh,
Step for our
I should
community.
say one, again, it's rhetorical because you may not have all the answers, but so something like that, it sounds like there'll be a 1 lane sort of shut for an extended period of time.
Yeah, we're gonna
So
go
that-
back to the traffic group for the signage plan and the traffic control plan during construction. Those are additional pieces that we have to have in order before the state will give us the permit to go to.
Yeah. If
construction.
you want to know kind of what it will look like, on the corner of Bradley
Yeah,
and Brookville, the corner was put in to meet ADA specifications, and the width and the curb is there. And then it just stops like after
Yeah,
that
yeah.
corner.
That's the ponding corner.
Yeah,
when there's a drizzle.
but that gives you kind of an idea of the width, the curb, and what it might look like.
And
for
actually,
that
the
one
fact
corner.
that that corner is already done means we don't have to redo those ramps. Those ramps are already okay.
Yeah.
The gutter that people complain about ponding in the gutter and in the corners of the intersections. The gutter will be replaced with the curb and the curb will be raised. So it'll be a 6-inch standard. It's county type A curb. This is very in the weeds, but bear with me. The gutter should actually help water run down as well. So.
and
Got my property there, but
I guess one last piece, so I know exactly, because I try and walk to the station as much as I can in the mornings, rather than take the car. I guess it's my own carbon emission sort of savings. But quick question, so there is that point after Bradley where it's another section of Chevy Chase where all
Right.
of a sudden it's like what they did is they just put like
That-
railroad tires or something, right? And that's like 6 inches high and
That's higher than, so that's like a foot high.
yeah, so that is not
Not what we're
doing.
doing.
We are actually raising it. and-
We're building a ADA
Yeah.
compliant sidewalk. I'm not gonna speak about other communities and their options they did. But the problem is the fact that the right of way on the state highway is so narrow and
Yeah.
so historic that if you get it, and they ran into issues where the residents wouldn't give them the easements, so they applied for a waiver for the entire thing. So they are not ADA compliant
Yeah.
down there in the village.
And they had to deal with this historical society,
Oh, that too. Yeah.
and which we do not have to do.
Thank you, I appreciate
But I do want to be ADA compliant, and if one of these, 6 residents really did not want to, allow us to cross a couple inches onto their property, we could apply for a waiver at that specific location. And we might even have to apply there's a couple of things where there's like a telephone pole right in the middle of where the sidewalk is gonna go. So we'll have to either work around it or
yeah,
get a waiver to go down to 3.5 feet at that
they're
specific.
like a
point.
shepherd, I think.
Yeah.
A shepherd one.
Okay,
So that is,
it's coming.
that is the Brookville project ongoing. 2 quick things on buildings I wanted to mention. we have issued the permits for 3415 Cummings Lane. That's the full demo and rebuild. We also had a pre-construction site meeting with the builders. So I met all the builders. I met their landscape architects. I met the county sediment control inspector, everybody on site. So they have signed off on everything they need and they are going to work. There's no parking signs posted out there today for delivery of construction materials. So they're
Okay,
there.
we have a variance meeting coming up.
And then that's the next one for 3518 Shepherd Street. They have applied to build a addition. That's the corner lot, the south side of Sherman and Brookville. That addition does, oh, Shepherd and Brookville.
Sherman Avenue is in Pepperell.
You're right. That addition meets the setback requirement by the village, but it does not meet the established building line along Brookville Road. And the code very clearly says it's whichever one is greater. So even though that addition is further back than the current house does not comply with the established building line. And they have applied for a variance. The variance hearing has been scheduled for May 2nd. And the adjacent neighbors have been notified. The adjacent neighbors have been notified, and I will invite the entire community to that public hearing as well.
Good.
That concludes my report unless there are questions.
No,
I do have a question. Take something right from the back.
Brookville Market has been having issue with their trash contractor. And actually, I shouldn't say Brookville Market. The owner of this entire shopping center has been having issue with their trash collection, which is done via Republic Incorporated,
Yeah.
Trash Incorporated. I'm not sure what their name is. But recently it's been a little bit better. But I have talked to Mike Strazi, the owner of this building, and he asked for our contact information for our waste management crew members. So I put them in touch with the sales team at Waste Management. But I'm not sure what else I can do beyond that.
What are you gonna do?
good. Okay, any other questions coming up? Good. Any residents' comments?
I have one, actually a couple.
Go-
Okay,
Go
thank you.
ahead, shoot.
Okay, first on the treasurer's report, thank you for making the reports more complete and informative. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask on the budget, whether it'd be possible to actually, besides just having the budget documents in the council meeting packets, to actually do a council announcement that said, here's the proposed budget for next year, and invited residents to take a look at the proposed budget. I mean, most people don't come to meetings, obviously, and don't read the packets. And I just thought it would be, in terms of community transparency and
Posted
inclusion.
separately somewhere?
The packet, the budget was already introduced in last month's
Right,
packet. So everyone already has it. And in order to pass anything, there has to be a public hearing, and that is at the adoption meeting.
But
So
can
that
it be
is-
posted separately on the village website? Is there a reasonable place to put it?
I mean, yeah, the introduced budget can be posted.
Yeah.
It hasn't been adopted yet.
Right.
And there may
Yeah,
be
with-
amendments to it, but
yeah,
Yeah.
with a note out to the community, not just in the weekly wrap up, but a standalone note that, would draw people's attention to it. Because, people need to look at the budget. Obviously, it's community interest, and people, as you've commented tonight during your discussion of the budget, the proposed budget, you've had a number of resident comments on it. But, the comments I've gotten people is, well, where's next year's budget? And I say, it's in the meeting packet. And they say, well, how do I get to the meeting packet? And I say, you go to the website. So I'm thinking, like, let's just be a little more transparent and do a note that says, here's the proposed budget. Get your comments in now so that you're not waiting till May 9th for people to say something, but you get something in advance, which seems to me more efficient. Is that doable?
I'm happy to post it directly onto the budget webpage as introduced, with a note on it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I am gonna resist sending out standalone emails for every single thing
right.
though, because then people stop reading my weekly wrap-ups. And then I wonder, and Aaron wonders, why are we doing these weekly wrap-ups when we're sending out every single thing as a standalone email? Let's just put it in the wrap-up. That way the wrap-up is the one true source of all information.
Read it.
Condensation, the condensed version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you, Marty.
yeah.
We have any
Okay.
other residents?
Yes, another resident question
Oh.
about sidewalks. Number one, thank you very much, Michael, for focusing on moving forward the Brookville sidewalk project. That is so much needed. And it's such a big safety issue for so many of us. So thank you and Godspeed. The question came from a resident, well, as long as they're going to be pouring concrete on Brookville, can they also fix the broken sidewalks that we have in other places in the village?
Yes.
Shepherd Street was mentioned,
Right.
and I know that Deers is no longer doing pavement because they retired, but I said that that you had put out, Michael, you had put out, or were going to put out RFPs for a new paving contractor, and the sidewalk paving would presumably be covered under that new paving contract. And my question was, can you put something in the weekly wrap-up or wherever you want to put it, that says, if you think your sidewalk needs to be repaired, right? Let Michael know that there is a plan to repair sidewalks in the next 12 months. I mean, I don't even know if it's 18 months or when it is, but what's the plan for repairing other sidewalks? I guess that's the core question.
Yeah, right.
People send me complaints about cracks in their sidewalk like constantly, so I have a running list that I'm just building up. And at some point, I'm gonna get around to
Walking,
hiring a new contractor, going and inspecting all of those sites and determining from the contractor's perspective and from my perspective, whether those cracks in the sidewalk have merit as needing to be fixed. And we will go ahead and schedule
Yeah.
those.
Unscheduled at the moment, but in the plan.
And if people have complaints about specific points, they're feel free to reach out to me. And I don't think anyone has any timidness about reaching out to the village office, because I get multiple complaints a week.
But also Michael walks the sidewalks practically weekly, so.
I've been trying to go for a walk every day for a
Right.
little mental
Yeah.
health break. So
Well,
I'm
I think
aware of
again, it's a question here of letting people know what you're doing. Thank you
Okay.
for doing it, letting people know what the process is, letting people know. The complaints that I got were about disjunctive sidewalks where there was an inch or 2 inch between two slabs where one was higher than the other, tripping
Mhm.
hazard, and jarred the baby in the baby carriage, and
Mhm.
made the kid on the little bike fall off. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't just cracks, it was where one piece of a sidewalk was higher or a chunk head was missing, so there was a height discrepancy that was a tripping hazard.
a number of years ago, the village went and shaved down a number of those points to make them
Yeah.
level. And then last year we did end up fixing, I think, 5 or 6 pieces of sidewalk around the village. So this is an ongoing
Yeah,
maintenance thing.
And
True.
again, I think it would just be helpful to make that public information more accessible, let people know what you're doing, because they're
Good.
doing the right thing. Thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Lynn Welly?
Lynn,
Usually this is about the time that, man nods off, even though he's still on there.
Lynn, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
I say this is usually about the time we get to committee reports.
yeah.
On record pace.
Lynn, are you there? Unmute.
He raised his hand.
Can you unmute him?
just recently.
Well, maybe he went away.
No, he's there, but,
We don't have the technology to unmute anymore, do we?
No.
Yeah.
You can't unmute people in their own room.
Well, no, we used to have like.
Oh, there he is.
Control.
Are you there?
He just moved.
He lowered his hand.
Okay.
Okay. In the next 18 seconds, if we don't have any more residents' comments, any comments from the council, I will declare this meeting.
Well, I thought you wanted to take-
adjourned. What?
Probably,
We have, somebody has to move to adjourn. I cannot declare.
I'll
No,
second
I mean,
again.
you can, but
Okay.
that's a czar
Okay.
move.
Okay,
I don't-
move.
That's a
Right.
dictator, yeah.
Right, move to
You're a
adjourn.
little late,
Second.
John Doe.
I second.
Can you hear me now?
Lynn, we have not adjourned. You're on.
All right, thank you. I hadn't touched the okay for the recording thing, so that canceled my ability to unmute. So anyway, back to the sidewalk. How much of an offset from one section of sidewalk to another would consider to be a tripping hazard or cause to do a repair? Like say the tree roots is lifting one section of the sidewalk and it's higher than an adjacent section. What is this, a half inch, an inch and a half?
Varies probably.
I don't know. I don't know. I think we
I don't
talked to
know.
our engineers about that.
I'd have to ask the engineer what's considered acceptable.
Yeah, I don't know. But in reviewing it, that would be one of the considerations.
But Lynn, if you do have a complaint about a specific section, let me know and I'll take a look at it with the engineers once we hire a new engineering firm.
Well, there was this oak tree that's outside my garden gate on Quincy. And if you're in that vicinity, you'll notice that there's one section of sidewalk that has been lifted by that oak tree roots. And it's noticeable. So next time you're down that way, you might just
Okay.
take a look. Not
Okay,
a
I will.
complaint, just an advisory.
Good, okay, it's on his list.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you for your
Given
excellent
no
work.
further,
I will motion to adjourn.
okay,
Oh, okay.
second, aye. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Oh, you-
Switch it up a little.
Good night, everyone.
Let's see.
I just.
Thank you, everybody.